May I invite Your Excellency now to address the House.
Great burst of cheering as Lord Mountbatten rises to address the House. He's standing absolutely upright. And now he's just about to start his speech.
President and members of the Constituent Assembly, I have a message from His Majesty the King to deliver to you today. This is His Majesty's message. On this historic day, when India takes her place as a free and independent dominion in the British Commonwealth of Nations, I send you all my greetings and heartfelt wishes. Freedom-loving people everywhere will wish to share in your celebrations. For with this transfer of power by consent comes the fulfillment of a great democratic ideal, to which the British and Indian peoples alike are firmly dedicated. It is inspiring to think that all this has been achieved by means of peaceful change. Heavy responsibilities lie ahead of you, but when I consider the statesmanship you have already shown and the great sacrifices you have already made, I am confident that you will be worthy of your destiny. I pray that the blessings of the Almighty may rest upon you, and that your leaders may continue to be guided with wisdom in the tasks before them. May the blessings of friendship, tolerance, and peace inspire you in your relations with the nations of the world. Be assured always of my sympathy in all your efforts to promote the prosperity of your people and the general welfare of mankind. That is the end of His Majesty's message.
Great burst of cheering at the end of the message.
It is barely 6 months ago that Mr. Attlee invited me to accept the appointment of last Viceroy. He made it clear that this would be no easy task, since His Majesty's government in the United Kingdom had decided to transfer power to Indian hands by June 1948. At that time, it seemed to many that His Majesty's government had set a date far too early. How could this tremendous operation be completed in 15 months? However, I had not been more than a week in India before I realized that this date of June 1948 for the transfer of power was too late rather than too early. Communal tension and rioting had assumed proportions of which I had no conception when I left England. It seemed to me that a decision had to be taken at the earliest possible moment, unless there was to be risk of a general conflagration throughout the whole subcontinent. I entered into discussions with the leaders of all parties at once, and the result, the plan of June the 3rd. Its acceptance has been hailed as an example of fine statesmanship throughout the world. The plan was evolved at every stage by a process of open diplomacy with the leaders. Its success is chiefly attributable to them. I believe that this system of open diplomacy was the only one suited to the situation in which the problems were so complex. It is a great triumph for the realism and sense of responsibility of the rulers and the governments of the states, as well as for the government of India, that it was possible to produce an instrument of accession which was equally acceptable to both sides, and one, moreover, so simple and so straightforward that within less than 3 weeks, practically all the states concerned had signed the instrument of accession and the standstill agreement. There is thus established a unified political structure covering over 300 million people and the major part of this great subcontinent. The only state of the first importance that has not yet acceded is the premier state, Hyderabad. Hyderabad occupies a unique position. The only state of the first importance that has not yet acceded is the premier state, Hyderabad. Hyderabad occupies a unique position in view of its size, population, and resources, and it has its special problems. The Nizam, while he does not propose to accede to the dominion of Pakistan, has not up to the present felt able to accede to the dominion of India. His Exalted Highness has, however, assured me of his wish to cooperate in the three essential subjects of external affairs, defense, and communications with that dominion whose territories surround his state. With the assent of the government, negotiations will be continued with the Nizam, and I am hopeful that we shall reach a solution satisfactory to all. From today, I am your constitutional Governor General.
Just announce the fact that he's going to be the Constitutional General with tremendous cheers.
And I would ask you to regard me as one of yourselves. Devoted wholly to the furtherance of India's interests, I am honored that you have endorsed the invitation originally made to me by your leaders to remain as your Governor General. The only consideration I had in mind in accepting was that I might continue to be of some help to you in the difficult days which lie immediately ahead. When discussing the draft of the India Independence Act, your leaders selected the 31st of March 1948 as the end of what may be called the interim period. I propose to ask to be released in April. It is not that I fail to appreciate the honor of being invited to stay in your service, but I feel that as soon as possible, India should be at liberty, if you so wish, to have one of her own people as Governor General. Until then, my wife and I will consider it a privilege to continue to work with and amongst you. No words can express our gratitude for the understanding and cooperation, as well as the true sympathy and generosity of spirit which have been shown to us at all times. I am glad to announce that my government, as I am now constitutionally entitled, and most proud to call it, have decided to mark this historic occasion by a generous program of amnesty.